Look at that photo. A line of hundreds of people snaking outside a cruise terminal, luggage in hand, waiting in the Florida heat. Now look at the person circled in red. They're not in that line. They're walking straight past it, heading directly toward the ship. That's not luck. That's not a mistake. That's a system. And every experienced cruiser knows exactly how it works, while the person standing in line on their first cruise assumes the queue is just part of the process. It isn't. Here's what's actually happening and how the whole embarkation day works when you know what to do. The single biggest factor determining how your embarkation day goes isn't what you do at the terminal. It's what you do weeks before you leave home. Every major cruise line opens online check-in well ahead of departure, and the window varies significantly. Royal Caribbean opens check-in 45 days before sailing, and Norwegian opens at 21 days. Carnival opens at 14 days. These aren't arbitrary dates. The earliest check-in windows are when the best arrival time slots are available. And once those early slots are gone, they don't come back. According to Backroad Planet's 2026 Cruise Check-In Guide, most cruise lines now require passengers to complete the entire check-in process digitally before arriving at the terminal. That includes uploading a security photo, linking a payment method, entering passport information for every person in your party, and selecting an arrival window. Miss the photo upload or submit one that fails quality checks. No glasses, plain background, no heavy filters, and you'll be flagged for manual review at the terminal, which can add significant time to your boarding process before you ever touch the gangway. The experienced cruiser sets a calendar alert for the exact day their line opens check-in and completes the process that same morning. The first timer does it the week before departure and finds the early slots are gone. This one is specific and verified, and it matters enormously for anyone sailing those two lines. Royal Caribbean and Celebrity are the only major mainstream cruise lines in 2026 that allow passengers to bypass the physical check-in desk at the terminal entirely, if and only if you've completed every step of digital check-in in advance. That means the security photo is uploaded, the passport data is verified, the onboard account is set up, and the encrypted QR code is on your phone. When those boxes are checked, you walk straight from the terminal entrance to the gangway without stopping at any staffed counter. According to the Points Guy's 2025 Embarkation Guide, not completing digital check-in in full requires stopping at a staffed desk to obtain a printed boarding pass. That step alone can add 30 to 45 minutes to your terminal time on a busy sailing day. On a ship carrying 5,000 passengers, with everyone arriving in a 4-hour window, 30 minutes is the difference between walking onto a quiet ship and joining a crowd at every venue simultaneously. Screenshot your QR code before you leave the hotel. A phone that dies in line, or an app that fails to load on spotty terminal Wi-Fi, forces you back to that staffed desk. The printed backup takes 30 seconds and eliminates that risk entirely. The person in that thumbnail isn't just someone who checked in online early. In most cases, they're in a different physical lane, one that moves at a completely different speed than the general boarding line. Every major cruise line operates a priority boarding system, and they break down into 3 tiers worth understanding. The first is suite-based priority. Norwegian's Haven guests receive a private escort from the terminal lounge directly onto the ship. MSC Yacht Club passengers board through a dedicated entrance with a butler already waiting. Royal Caribbean's Star Class receives expedited boarding that bypasses every public queue in the terminal. These are built into the cost of the accommodation, no separate purchase required. The second is purchasable priority. Carnival's Faster to the Fun program runs $59.95 to $189.95 per cabin, depending on home port and sailing length. That's per cabin, not per person, which makes it more economical than it first appears for couples and families. It includes a dedicated security and check-in lane, early access to your cabin even before the standard 1 p.m. readiness window, and expedited luggage delivery. Royal Caribbean's The Key program starts at $25 per person per day, which on a 7-night sailing for 2 represents a meaningful investment, but it includes priority terminal access, a welcome lunch at Chop's Grill with bag drop service, VIP show reservations, and priority departure at the end of the cruise. Norwegian's Priority Access package adds a $50 spa credit and complimentary room service breakfast on top of the priority boarding itself. The third is loyalty-based priority. Carnival's VIFP Platinum tier, 75 cruise days, Norwegian's Latitudes Platinum, 75 nights, and Princess Captain Circle Platinum and Elite levels all include priority boarding as a standard benefit of the tier. These aren't programs you buy. They're the accumulated result of repeat sailings, and they represent what the person walking past that line in the thumbnail has usually spent years building. The practical takeaway: on most sailings, there are 3 or 4 separate tiers boarding before the general line even begins to move. Suite guests, priority program passengers, loyalty elite members, and guests with accessibility needs all board ahead of the standard boarding call. The general line is not the start of boarding. It's what's left after everyone else has already gone through. Here's a counterintuitive move that experienced cruisers make consistently. They don't always take the earliest available arrival slot. The logic seems backwards. Why not get there as early as possible? The answer is in how terminals actually function. The first passengers to arrive at most terminals, typically between 10 and 11 a.m., board a ship that isn't ready yet. Staterooms aren't cleared until approximately 1 p.m. Most specialty dining reservations for that evening haven't opened. The muster station check-in is required before the ship departs, which means the time isn't actually free. It's structured. What experienced cruisers often do instead is use the late morning arrival window to minimize terminal wait time without missing anything meaningful on the ship itself. Arriving at 11:30 or noon at many terminals means walking directly onto a ship where the buffet is open, the pool is uncrowded, and the general embarkation rush hasn't yet overwhelmed every venue simultaneously. Arriving at 10 a.m. sometimes means sitting in a terminal waiting area for 90 minutes before boarding begins at all. The exception is the early slot when you have priority boarding. If you're in a suite, have faster to the fun, or hold loyalty status, the early slot is genuinely worth taking because you bypass the queue regardless of how many people are already waiting. The experienced cruiser has a specific sequence for the first half hour on the ship, and none of it involves the buffet. The muster drill, now a digital or hybrid process on most lines, needs to be completed before sail away. On Royal Caribbean and several other lines, you can watch the safety video on the ship's app before you even arrive at the terminal, check in at your muster station immediately after boarding, and have the entire mandatory compliance done within 15 minutes of stepping on the ship. Leave it until later and you'll find yourself scrambling while trying to eat lunch, make dining reservations, and locate your cabin all at once. Specialty dining reservations for the week fill up on embarkation day faster than most first-time cruisers expect. On large Royal Caribbean ships in particular, venues like Chop's Grill, Izumi, and Giovanni's Kitchen can fully book within hours of the ship opening for boarding. The experienced cruiser goes directly to the reservation desk or opens the app immediately after completing muster check-in. Entertainment on megaships, Broadway productions, comedy shows, the ice skating theater on Royal Caribbean has limited seating and requires reservations on most modern vessels. Same principle. Book within the first 30 minutes or spend the week trying to find a slot. One more move, find your cabin attendant on that first afternoon and introduce yourself. Not to make requests immediately, but because the crew member who knows your name and has spoken to you directly will go meaningfully further out of their way for you than the anonymous guest in room number 4218. This is documented passenger experience across dozens of cruise reports, not a soft tip. It's how service relationships work on ships where one attendant is managing 20 or more cabins simultaneously. The final thing experienced cruisers do before sail away that first-timers rarely know about. They put their phone on airplane mode or at minimum turn off cellular data before the ship leaves the dock. International maritime roaming rates apply the moment a ship crosses into international waters. Some carriers extend this to coastal waters outside the domestic zone. Cruise ship Wi-Fi, purchased as a package through the cruise line, does not replace cellular data automatically. Both can run simultaneously if your phone isn't set correctly. Passengers have returned from 7-night sailings to find cellular roaming charges in the hundreds of dollars from data that ran in the background while the ship's Wi-Fi was active. The sequence is simple. Before sail away, turn off cellular data. Use only the cruise line's Wi-Fi package for connectivity. Turn cellular back on when you're back in a US port. It takes 10 seconds and eliminates a category of surprise charge that catches first-time cruisers every single sailing season. The person walking past that line in the terminal didn't get lucky. They completed check-in the day the window opened, selected an arrival slot before the early times were gone, hold a priority tier that puts them in a separate lane, and they've done this enough times that the sequence is automatic. None of it is complicated. None of it requires a suite or a loyalty program with years behind it. The digital check-in is free. Knowing which arrival window actually works in your favor costs nothing. Understanding that the general line is what's left after 4 tiers have already boarded is just information. The difference between standing in that line and walking past it is almost entirely what you did or didn't do in the weeks before you arrived at the port.